All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Sales Manager Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar, and as always, we talk about leadership in the boutique retail space. So, wireless retail, appliances, AV, that kind of nature. And as you might have seen, I was actually out for the last few days, right? It was Easter weekend. Uh, so actually flew back to go visit some family in Mexico. Uh, and for those that don't know, right, I'm Mexican. Uh, so we spent quite a bit of time with family. We go back to Mexico every so often. And it just so happens that the 19th was actually my dad's 1 year anniversary of passing. Uh, so it was, to go pay respects, visit him, visit the grave. Uh, and, quite a few things happened that were a little bit different, made me kind of reflect on a lot of things, right? Um, and it was one where part of it was not what I thought was going to be. Because I know, just so y'all know, right? We live about like 3 to 4 hours away from like a big city. So it's really out in kind of like the middle of nowhere, where it's actually about 15 minutes outside of the closest town. Um, right. And the town's small. And even that town's like pretty far away from the next big city, right? Like probably a couple hours. Um, So having like spotty reception is pretty normal. It's not uncommon in the area. What I wasn't expecting was to not have any cell phone service the entire time there, right? From the moment that we arrived into the area, uh, to pretty much when we left, we didn't get service back until late afternoon, like Sunday, right? Easter Sunday. So it was kind of crazy. And keep in mind, this is an area where most people have let go of their landlines. Like there is no landlines. Everybody just uses cell phone service, or they would just walk. Right. Obviously, it's pretty tough to walk from like the ranch to the town because it's 15 minutes driving distance. Kind of everybody typically goes horseback riding or um, right to the town, that kind of stuff. So it was kind of interesting not having any kind of cell phone reception. Keep in mind too that most of the Wi-Fi in this area is provided through mobile services. So if cell phone reception is down, there's just no internet, period. And if you're wondering like, hey, why was cell phone service down? Well, obviously cartels, right? That's a big one. Um, so nobody was sure if it was the cartels that brought service down, right, so that they could move freely, or if it was the government that brought it down to try to capture the cartel members that were in the area. So it was kind of interesting, but everybody was already used to it because apparently it's been happening a lot more often in the area than it ever was before. So that was pretty interesting because last time I was there, no issue. Cell phone service up the entire time. Spotty, right? But it was up. It wasn't like you could do a lot of live streaming, stuff like that. But that's like one of the reasons, one of the big things. And a lot of the different things popped up into my head, right? Obviously, a lot more present, being able to spend time with family, just talking, catching up. Um, but also, I was there with I took my kids, my wife. So when I left to go somewhere or she went to do something, it wasn't like we could just call each other up and be like, hey. So we literally had to coordinate beforehand, like, hey, if this happens, I'll be over here. It would kind of like get that going. And same thing with everybody else, right? Because like on the day that we arrived, we literally, went to my wireless house and we were there for a few hours waiting to see if the rest of my family would show up. And everybody was waiting for us to call them. And everybody was like trying to figure out what we were going to do because we couldn't reach each other. We couldn't call each other. Uh, so that was kind of like an interesting um, take because I haven't been in that kind of situation. I don't think any of y'all have been in that kind of situation for a very long time. Honestly, I think I had my first actual cell phone, my senior year in high school back in, God, I'm dating myself, like '03, '04. Um, and prior to that, that's the last time where I couldn't be reached or I couldn't reach anybody, in a split of a second because I had my cell phone. So that was interesting to go back to relive. Um, no internet, no browsing, nothing like that. So it was interesting take for sure to go back to. And a couple things popped into my head. Obviously, not just only being, enjoying the time, being present with family, and reminiscing on old times, but also I was thinking, what if my team couldn't get a hold of me, right? As a leader, I've been in situations where I've been out of the country, and my phone's gone off because I have people blowing me up, right? From my leadership to, people in my team, um, trying to figure things out. But what happens when something unexpected happens, right? I wasn't expected to not have service. I was actually used to having service in this area. So, what happens when you have no service and it's unexpected? So, you're on vacation, you go to your destination, and then you find out there's absolutely no service. There's no way to call out, there's no way to, text, to email. Uh, what do you do? Like, what does your team do? And here's the thing, as a leader, if your team can't handle and can't function, you know, for 48 hours without you, it's not that you don't have a team, it's that your team depends on you way too much. You're a hotline for any issues that they're having, for any problem solvings that they need. And that's not what you want, right? That's not what you want them to go through. You want them to be able to figure things out on their own, to be able to actually think on their feet and get things done without you, right? Sometimes as leaders, we let panic set in when you're always on call, okay? Because you allow your team to be able to reach to you, reach out to you, blow you up, call you up, like, hey, this isn't working. What I do now? What I do about this? What happens if I do this? Uh, and when they can't reach you, they start to, act like chickens with their heads cut off. They're running around, not knowing where to go, what to do. Uh, and they're waiting for your response. And we can't have that. Okay. Uh, that's not something that we can do. And it happens all too often. And part of it, once again, it's not necessarily your fault as a leader as much as it's the organization for not training and developing you. And part of that is because they don't know how to train and develop. A lot of companies have gone out with cutting leadership out, putting people in leadership positions without any kind of training, having them try to figure things out on their own, realizing and actually not realizing. When you get into that role, you realize, oh shit, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. They don't know that you don't know, and they don't have the processes and the procedures and the tribal knowledge to make sure that you know what you're supposed to be doing and to be able to train others and develop others. So it's trial by fire, which, unless you're going into an absolutely brand new market that has never had any kind of competition or market share or anything, that shouldn't be happening at all. There should be some type of process. There should be something to train and develop others in those areas. And that's what allows the organization to grow without any issues in the long term. But ask yourself, what would happen to you? What would happen to your team if you could not be reached for, up to 4 days? At the end of the day, I'm on fucking vacation. Like, whether you can or can't reach me, that's honestly not my fault. Um, that's where we're at, right? So ask yourself, what would happen to your team if they can't reach you for an extended period of time and an emergency happens? Do they know who to reach out to? Are they comfortable reaching out to somebody else? Or are they just going to be like, well, fuck it. I guess when they get back, they'll figure it out and leave you, with a big pile of shit to figure out and fix after you get back. You don't want that kind of chaos in your absence. You want to build a team that isn't dependent on you. You're there to support them in their growth. You're there to support them in reaching their results. You're not the quarterback, you're the coach. If, as a sales leader, you see yourself as the quarterback, running the plays, participating actively in the play, instead of the coach that's on the sidelines and watching things happen, you're fucking up. And that's part of realizing that there's an issue with the style of leadership that you have developed or haven't developed yet. Okay. Because once again, it's not necessarily your fault. Have you been trained? Have you been mentored? Have you been guided by your organization, by your leadership in these roles? I can honestly say 90% of the time, no. Either they're too small where they don't believe they have the need or necessity because they have that constant connection to to the owner or the top execs in the organization, which that shouldn't be the case. They should still be training and developing you so that they can focus on other things and aren't stuck focusing on what's happening in the front lines. That is a big difference. So, what is going on? What are you doing to help develop yourself, to train yourself to get to that point? That's a hard thing for a lot of people to understand where you fall into. And honestly, as a new leader or as a leader within one of these organizations, you don't know what you don't know. You think that things are running well because, hey, my team's calling me and I'm getting shit done for them. No, you're not. You're not getting anything done. You're just being bogged down and thinking that busy work is real work. It's not. As a leader, you should not be working more hours. The adage, of, work hard, play hard doesn't mean fucking work 60, 70 hours a week. That's not what it means. It means, yes, you get work done, and the less time you spend on actual physical work like that, the better your team is doing without you. As a leader, that's what needs to be happening. There is nothing wrong with being a leader that's working literally 30 to 40 hours if your team is blowing it out of the water. If your leadership expects you to be grinding 60, 70 hours a week as a fucking district leader, there's something wrong with the organization. That should not be happening, right? So you shouldn't be working that many hours. And if you are, there is something completely wrong either within the organization because there's no training and developing. I can tell you that right now if that's how many hours you're working. So what are you doing to help change that culture, right? Or it's you not knowing how to be a true leader because you're spending too much time stuck in the weeds instead of actually developing your team to run and operate without you. And that's what we want to do. We want to get you to the point where you got your team trained, developed, growing without you needing to step in to assist every single way of the process. You shouldn't be doing that, right? When you start to disconnect yourself, okay, it also does a couple of different things from allowing your team to actually operate without you to understanding that when you're there to actually do something. So it creates more actual authority for you than you constantly being there stuck in the weeds in the field. I'm not saying when you do a visit, don't participate. I'm saying when you do a visit, don't fucking be on the sales floor the entire time closing sales for the team because they need your assistance there. That's not what should be happening, right? When I've done store visits, I would go in, yeah, I would help and assist. I wouldn't take over sales. That's the difference. You should not be driving sales directly. You should be driving sales indirectly because of training, because of developing, because of mentoring, because of coaching. That's what should be happening. Okay. You don't want to be a distraction to the team when you show up. Okay. Remember, you're a leader who's training and developing others to operate without you. You want to be proactive in ensuring that metrics, KPIs, results are getting hit and getting attained. You don't want to be a distraction. You don't want to be reactive to any issues that arise in the field. Being proactive means your team can easily pivot and get after what needs to get after. When they're reactive, you're already late to the game. You're too stuck trying to make sure things don't get worse. Okay. You don't want a reactive approach. You want a proactive approach. You can get ahead of the game. You can actually set the expectations for not just your team, but also for the entire organization if done correctly. And here's the thing I've said before, we're talking about something where you don't necessarily need to be doing hours and hours and hours of coaching. Coaching done right can be done in as little as 15-minute sessions. And you'll get more, and your team will get more out of those 15-minute coaching sessions than an 8-hour data dump. Okay. That's a big difference. Now, sometimes in your day-to-day process, you're going to have to force a disconnection from your team where they will not be able to get a hold of you. Now, obviously, I'm not saying if like there's a store break-in, something like that. No, but there should be a process. That's a little bit separate. Okay. What I'm talking about is I don't know how to process this. I don't know how to do this portion. You should not be the first call. There should be something where your team understands, all right, I got to reach out to, up here, my store leader or one of the store leaders, right? One, if my leaders are out for the day, can I reach out to one of the other adjacent leaders in the territory? What can they do before they reach out to you? I should be one of the last calls they reach out to as a leader when it comes to anything, right? That's the hard part because you want to be in there. You want to save the day for them. But that is part of letting go so that you don't have to do a bunch of fire drills. You're not stuck having to fix problems every single time. If you think, wow, I'm a great leader because I'm constantly fixing problems. No, you're the fucking problem. Learn to pull yourself away. Learn to create a disconnection where your team knows they will not be able to reach you. You will have a much better life. You will also be working a lot less fucking hours. Okay. There is nothing more amazing than being able to step back, let your team handle business, you getting accolades, your team fucking getting awards recognized left and right, and you working less than 40 hours as a district manager. You are handling business. You're salaried, not because you can work 50, 60, 70 hours. No, you need to learn to be able to do more in less. At first, yes, you will be working, 40 to 60 hours because you're new. You're still trying to learn the ropes. If your team, if your leadership allows you to work more than that without getting on your case, there's something wrong. If the expectation is that you're going to be working 60 plus hours as a leader, there is something wrong. You should be driving results, working less because you're delegating. You're allowing your team to handle the majority of the work. They can do more than you alone can produce. That should not come to a surprise to anybody. Even if they are able to, only match 60 to 70% of what you're capable of doing across 4, 10, 12, 15 different locations, that is still more than what you could do alone. Let that sink in. That is the power of allowing your team the room to grow, the room to operate without you constantly being a hindrance to their leadership, to their production. You're spending more time now in training and developing them to be able to do more without you. That is where you start to see a lot of growth. That is where you start to see them actually blossom into who they could be. That is when you start to see that you're preparing them to lead in your absence. You can take time away. You can actually be off and not have to worry about, oh shit, if I don't answer this stuff, then it sucks. I got so much shit to do tomorrow. It shouldn't be that way. All right. Intentionally being and spending time off grid will let your team know that they got to figure it out. You're not going to be the crutch for them. You're a support. You're there to help them drive results. You're there to train, develop, coach, mentor, but you're not going to be the problem solver for them. They got to figure it out. They got to do it on their own. And you will see when you raise the bar and you set those expectations and you inspect the expectations, you actually follow through with it, your teams will rise up to the expectation. But if you constantly keep them suppressed, just like the story of the cricket in the jar with this, jar closed, they will only jump as high as that bar is set, and that is that. They will not be able to go over. So you got to raise that bar. Help them break that limiting belief that is keeping them down, and you will see how well they can perform without you there. How well they can perform and excel. And if you're thinking, well, if that happens, then how am I still going to have a job? How am I still going to have my position if they can do this without me? They did that because you trained them. They did that because you believe that they're capable of doing it. They did that because you developed them, mentored them, guided them. What kind of fucking organization wouldn't want that on their team, in their company? I'll tell you what kind. The ones that are destined to fail. Great organizations know that those are the kind of leaders they want because they can drive results. They can help the organization grow. They can create and develop initiatives and actually get them to follow through and grow. Those are the differences. And that's the kind of leadership that you want. That's the kind of leader you want to become. So remember, you don't build great teams by always being available. You built great teams by coaching them to thrive without you being present. And if you're wondering, how can I get started with this? You all know, take a look at the link in the bio, take a look at the link in the description, depending on where you're watching the video. Grab that 15-minute framework and start using it. If you have any questions, like always, leave a comment, send an email. Let's connect. All right, guys, I want to thank you once again for taking your time, stepping into another episode with us here at the Sales Manager Academy podcast. I'm Omar, and I'll catch you on the next one.